Welcome to Channel 18 once again, and today we have as our guest Barbara Ann Foley, Director of the Council on Aging. And Barbara Ann is going to give us an update on what's going to be taking place this month, the Council on Aging. And I understand the home safety is very much on your program.
It is. It's nice to be here again. We are going to be working hand in hand again with our Harwich Fire Department. One of the things that we have difficulty with in some of our homes is, Paul and I were talking off air, is people don't know where their outside heating source vent comes out of their home. So one of the ideas that we have is we have it on the front page of our newsletter. And if you don't get our newsletter, please call us or stop by, and we just have a very simple form to fill out. It's free. And every senior should have it. It is the Harwich Community Center newsletter, so it has everything that all the departments are doing in it. So back to the flags, we're looking for, if you can picture what a bicycle flag looks like. It's got the long stick and a flag at the end of it. We're picturing something like that, or they have bamboo sticks that are glow in the dark or reflective, and they also have reflective fiberglass sticks. It doesn't really matter to us too much what the item looks like, but if it's possible after the winter from you-know-where that we had this past winter, and we're hoping not to repeat again, although if you listen to the old Farmer's Almanac, they sound like it's going to be a close repeat. But anyway, we're looking to have them marked, and the reason is a number of reasons. One, if you are disabled or you're not able to get outside yourself and clear the vent, if you're calling a friend or a vendor of some kind to do so, it may not be readily seen when you've already got snow on the ground as to where that vent is. A lot of the houses, my own included, in the 70s and 80s and older, the vents were built about 2 feet off the ground. So if you think about the snow that we got, 4 or 5 feet, after a while kept piling on and piling on. When you're only about this far off the ground and you've got that much snow, it's real easy to get the snow, caked inside. Or, in a bad fall, wet, rainy season, wet leaves and dirt, blown inside. So we don't want those vents blocked because we don't want carbon monoxide backing up into the house and harming anyone. So some of the things we're going to be looking at in this home assessment that we're doing is fall prevention issues such as scatter rugs or people who, in our observation, are furniture walking and holding on to things, trying to make the house safer for them. Issue one. And the other is fire safety. We're going to look for smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, actually pull them down, look at what the dates are. And if they're out of date, a lot of people think if they're hardwired, they came with the house, they're good forever, right? Because they're hardwired. Well, the truth of the matter is they're only good for 10 years. And a lot of folks, as we get older, we don't want them climbing stepladders to get up to some of those detectors. So, let us do that walking and moving for you. So in our newsletter, we've got a number of dates. September 15th, 1 o'clock to 4, the 21st, 9 to 1, the 24th, 9 to 1, October 7th, 9 to 1, the October 20th, 1 to 4, and October 28th, 9 to 1. What is that? Well, those are all the timetables that we have put aside, fire and my department, for these assessments. You have to have an appointment for us to come out. So if you are interested in having your home assessed for this, we would love to come out and do that for you. You just simply call our 430-7550 number. And we will also look to see where the vents are and if they're marked. I talked to my friend Doug Langtree, who does a lot of these kind of installations and works with this and actually teaches the code to young men and women that are going into this business. And he said that when you put in new systems or renovate them, they actually have a flat sign that goes on the side of your house that has an arrow pointing down saying where the vent is. Well, he does the inspection, and guess what happens? Most people take them off because they think they look ugly. So that's problem one. And the second problem that goes along with that is when it isn't marked, the older we get, the less likely we are to be able to go out and clear it if we need to. So it would really behoove us to know where those vents are.
Now, when you have these vents and you have the furnace going, when the exhaust fan works, isn't that a heat fan, and wouldn't that melt snow?
Very good question, Paul. It melts the snow close around it, but when we get big drops, 8, 10, 12 inches at a time, it can't keep up. Mm-hmm. So, and it can build up. If you had just a little bit and was left over and didn't get melted down, and then, kind of wham, you get 8 or 10 more inches, they are supposed to do that. The reality is that sometimes it just gets so built up around us because of our lovely New England weather. So we want to make sure to know where they are. I was hoping to try and invent something, actually, to go inside the vent that would set off an alarm in the house. And when I was talking to Doug and others in fire departments, they said there's so many different manufacturers that would almost be impossible to do, and it could actually cause a problem because of the item itself. So the two best things they all said was to mark where they are and to be able to get somebody to clear them. So if we can, do our assessments and get people at least aware of where they are, it certainly will be helpful.
Now, are they usually near an exit, or are they around to the side of the
They're
house?
usually on the side of a house for the most part, but some are connected somehow through an outer vent with a chimney and other stuff, so they really can be almost anywhere, and that's why he was saying each system is different. The older you get, you have more of the chimney issues. The middle of the road you get, you have the 2 feet off the ground. The great new ones that you get are much higher off the ground. Mm-hmm. So not that we all can afford to go replace all of our systems, but at least if we can flag where they are, if fire department, if somebody calls and they say, my neighbors, newspapers are piling up outside, and the fire department goes and we've just had some bad snow, and they know the person can't get out and there's somebody in there and they're not getting the newspapers, and we've got a lot of snow, let's hope to God they're not in there with carbon monoxide poisoning. So it's that kind of thing that we all need to watch for our neighbors as well. But at least if we know where they are, and you yourself called fire department or police, you can say, I know it's on the side of my house and I have a flag out there, but I just can't do it myself. And I know there's a lot of snow and I can see it from my window and it's blocked. That's a legitimate concern because you can die from carbon monoxide poisoning. So we have a grant to do this program, and we will have a very limited amount of the 2 kinds of detectors to try and replace those that we can if they are, compatible with the ones that are in people's homes. And to dovetail on that, the other thing with emergencies that people are often afraid to do when we get the shelter at the tech school is opening and DY is opening and that something bad is coming, we often will get from people, can't go, I'm going to shelter in place because I've got, Faithy the dog. That's my dog's name. And a lot of people still today, if you can believe it, don't know that we are allowed to take cats and dogs at the tech school. Mm-hmm. They have to have, updated shots. They have to be in a crate or have a crate to be able to go into. And obviously have to have a leash and their own food and dish for water, etc. But one of the things that the police department and I are currently working on, you all know, hopefully by now, I want to say you all know, about the file of life, correct? We're looking at trying to do a pet file of life. The reason for that is because in addition to going to tech school or somewhere else for shelter, if you had to be carted off for whatever reason, God forbid, to Cape Cod Hospital, and let's say it was something bad, you live alone and you've got a cat or a dog, and you've had a stroke or something big, and you go to the hospital, and now you're going to be there for a little bit, and then you're probably going to go to rehab for a little while. And who knows what kind of state of mind your mind is going to be in. So at least if we have a sticker on the outside of your door that says, this home contains 1 dog and 2 cats or something like that, in addition to having on your fridge a file of life, the dog had his shots on this day, the dog is dewormed, all the things that you have for your animals. And if there's any allergies, our town nurse was talking at our program last week, and she was comparing pills, one pill that looks exactly like another, and passed it around the whole class of 30. And they all said, oh my God, you can't tell the difference between the two. Well, one was for humans and one was for dogs. And they really did look identical. There were a couple little markings different. So it would be helpful for an outsider coming in to know everything they could about your pet to try and get it to somewhere safe. And at least if they knew, where do you use for a kennel? Where do you use to have the animal groomed? When did they have their shots, etc. We would have that all on what we call a file of life. It would be kind of a pet for life, I guess you could call it, form. So we're working on that. That too is in the newsletter. Our social services coordinator, Kevin, has taken on a huge task, thankfully. He is going to be a facilitator for a new program for people who have issues with hoarding and collecting. It's called Buried in Treasures. It's actually a book called Buried in Treasures. It's a very structured program for individuals who have difficulty with hoarding and clutter in their homes. It meets for 15 sessions over 20 weeks, so it's a big commitment. There is no charge for it. And if you are interested or you know someone perhaps that may be interested, you can call Kevin directly at the 430-7551, and he is at extension 12. That's a program coming up that we're really excited about. We were we asked to be actually chosen as one of the sites on the Lower Cape. It's such a big issue that's going on right now with people as they're aging that we thought that we would try and hit it as best we could head on.
And
so
this is clutter that you have in your home?
Well,
or is it just build-up of surplus material?
It could be a little bit of both. I say with the people will say to me, so how do you know if you have Alzheimer's or not? Or how do you know if you have dementia or not? And I'll say, well, you know how people always laugh about, oh my God, I don't know what I did with my keys. And I'll say, that's kind of normal. That happens a lot with aging. But if when you find those keys, you have no idea what you're supposed to do with them, then we have a problem.
Yeah.
So with clutter and hoarding, one of the sort of tells, as we would say, is that you know that there's an issue, but you can't get to it all by yourself,
Okay.
one. And two, even if you had somebody to help you, if you had 15 pieces of something in front of you, you would need to inspect each of those pieces, and it would be very difficult for you emotionally to part with each of those pieces. So if it's Mrs. Jones and lost her husband and she's physically disabled and just has a lifetime of collected stuff, but if I went over and I was able to help her to bring things to the dump or wherever they needed to go, she would have no problem in me doing that. That's not hoarding. That's not a collector. It's just clutter that needs to be gotten rid of.
Okay.
So people who have very difficult time with parting with things emotionally, that's usually a pretty strong tell.
So if you have, a disease that affects your memory or your mind, that's one of the main factors in this program.
No, I was just using that as an example. No, hoarding people and collecting people usually don't have memory problems. They usually have emotional problems that started back when they were in their late teens. And what happens is it often stays dormant until they get into their late 40s, 50s, sometimes even 60s and above. And then all of a sudden, they just can't cope. They just can't get the stuff out. So you'll see somebody, when we see pictures, for example, that has, a collection of 150 T-shirts that they got from various concerts. And when they were young, they don't fit anymore. Many of them might have holes in them or stains on them. But if I went to you to say, Paul, you know, you really ought to give up these T-shirts already, for goodness sakes, man, you would say, oh, no, 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 you can't touch those. No, you know, that was, you know, AC/DC. That was Rod Stewart. That was, and you remember each one, and you remember each concert, and that T-shirt is your link to that concert, so you can't part with it. That's the kind of person we're talking about.
Okay.
So someone with a real strong emotional, not rational most of the time, attachment to whatever is going on that they have collected. So the last thing that I want to tell you about is we have a wonderful Reiki practitioner, and she is going to be coming, Diane Thibodeau, not only for her normal Reiki treatments in the month of September and October, the 15th and October 20th, by appointment, but she's going to also be doing on September 18th and October 16th and November 13th at night from 6 to 8, Reiki treatments for caregivers. It's a huge dream of Diane's and mine, and basically it will be in the multi-purpose room, a really quiet, lightly darkened atmosphere so people can totally relax. And we're working on trying to, you can bring your loved one with you if you're caring for someone with dementia. There'll be another person in the room who can do Reiki on the person with dementia, so you don't have to leave anybody with a sitter or somebody at home. We've never done this before, and we're very excited. So if you're interested in that, again, that's also by appointment. And both of those kinds of Reiki, both for everybody, by Diane by herself, is 430-7550 by appointment. And this, I'm calling them treatments for caregivers, is also the same phone number, and that both have a pre-registration that's required.
So what do they do when they do Reiki?
So Reiki is a touch, we call it a touch of peace, a healing art. So they're not literally putting their hands physically on you. They are putting them, and they've got what they call like a healing energy that is supposed to come from the practitioner to the person that they are working with. And that energy is supposed to be healing. A number of hospitals are using it with cancer patients, etc. So it's just to try and bring some calming and some peace and some healing to the people who are taking care of and expending all their energy on the loved ones that they're caring for.
Okay.
So that's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Well, thank you for those interesting facts, and we hope everybody takes advantage of them.